Hello my friends, it is a cold, dreary day, which means it is the perfect day to talk about every single book that I read this year in 2023. Yeah, I don't really know what the connection was, but we're gonna talk about every book that I've read in 2023 from my least favorite to my most favorite. I am not going to go into depth about them, but I am going to try and kind of sum them up in like one sentence, maximum two. We're gonna see how this goes. I've gone over this list again and again and again, but I just know that I missed something. So if you check my Goodreads, you know, at top of 2023 to December 13th, which is when I'm filming this, and you see a discrepancy or a book I forgot, I apologize. Before I start, hey, what's up? My name's Elise. If you're new here, welcome in. If you're not new, welcome back. It's great to see y'all. Let's get into the video. First, we have A Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. A group of women who gather for a book club in Southern USA in the 80s come across a man that has been around their community for a really long time, and when he's around, bad things happen to children and people in the community. So one of the book club members decides to take it upon herself to figure out what he is and get rid of him. Next we have The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. This is a story about a girl who has been really good friends with a family. She's becoming a teenager and she ultimately has to decide between which brother she wants to date. Woo! Okay. Then we have California by Eden Lapuki. This follows a couple. It's kind of post-apocalyptic era. They find out she's pregnant and have to decide whether they want to join a community which has all of these rules for staying safe, or if they want to continue to live out alone in nature. Very secretive, lots and lots of rules that they have to follow, lots of underlying tension. Then we have The Teacher's Billionaire, which is a short story about a teacher who discovers that she is the daughter of a up-and-coming or well-known politician. His stepson kind of manages things and comes to make sure that the new daughter doesn't do anything crazy or take advantage of her father and his stepfather, and the two fall for each other. Then we have Ambrosia, the second book in the Frosted Nectar series. For the sake of not spoiling too much, let's just say it continues from the cliffhanger of the first book, Frost, and there is a lot of adventure and traveling back and forth and capture and getting out of prison and discovering powers and so forth. Then we have American Housewife Stories by Helen Ellis. This is a collection of essays about being a housewife in America. There's lots of satire and humor and interesting stories. A Visit from the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan is a story surrounding rock and roll and the music industry. Each chapter is told from a different character's perspective, but you find out in the chapter that it's connected to the character from the previous chapter somehow, and it all circles back around. Very existential, melodramatic, and the world sucks. Then we have Sweet Berries by C.M. Nacosta. This is a monster romance following this one community that is kind of up and coming and known for having a mixed community of humans and monsters or creatures. This story follows a berry farm and a woman who works there, as well as a Mothman, who have an interesting meet cute and develop a relationship. Then we have 6 Months in Montana, which is a short story about a contract marriage. A man's dad dies or grandpa dies, leaves the farm that he runs to his son, but he only can inherit it if he marries his childhood best friend who he hadn't talked to in a while. She agrees to get married for 6 months and then they'll divorce and go their own ways, but things don't go as planned. Then we have The Upside of Falling Down. A woman is on her way to Ireland and crashes in a plane, wakes up in a hospital with no memories. So ensues the story of her kind of befriending someone and trying to recover her memory and learning new things about herself along the way. There's also a romance in this. Then we have Scattered Petals. This is a story about a gamer who, the gaming competition she's in has some sort of glitch, and it sends her to another galaxy of plant creatures, sentient humanoid plants, and she finds her mate on this planet. Then we have Angel's Cage, which is the second book in the Molotov Obsession series by Anna Zares. This continues from a cliffhanger, and she's recovering from an event. The main male character, Nikolai, is like, "You're mine." So she's grappling with that and some more information about her past and what to do with it in the future. Then we have Flamingo's Fated Mates, which is the first book in the Lawn Ornament Shifter series. This is a short story I got on Stuff Your Kindle Free Day about a flamingo shifter who makes lawn ornaments. He and this lady get stuck in this convention center in a snowstorm together. It's about their adventure that night, and they're fated mates. Then we have Thank You for Listening by Julia Whalen, and it's a story about this narrator who used to narrate romance books. Now she does anything else. She gets an offer to narrate one last romance series with this unknown male famous narrator. This kind of flirtation ensues, and when they finally meet, he ends up being someone she was surprised to have already known. Then we have Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. This story follows Will and Fern, who met like 12 years ago and had just the best day ever and agreed to meet a year later after they tied up some things. Well, a year comes and he doesn't show up. 10 years later, Fern is now in charge of the resort that they were supposed to meet at, inherited from her mother, and he shows up to help with the finances. Next we have Pax. I accidentally read the second book in the series. This follows a young boy who is an orphan, I believe. He had a young fox. The fox got stronger and he released it into the wild. And so it follows the perspective of that fox who now has a family and is trying to keep them safe. Their paths cross. Then we have We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. This follows a girl and her family slash friends who are off on an island in New York. Oh, in Massachusetts. I was way off. The main female character has amnesia surrounding this giant event. Everyone's cagey, everyone's acting weird, they're treating her differently, and she's trying to figure out what happened and why it's caused people to act like this. There's also 2 twists at the end. Second one, so did not see coming. It was a good twist. Then we have You've Reached Sam by Dustin Tao. Julie is dealing with a lot of grief over her boyfriend Sam, who passed away in a car accident. She calls his voicemail to hear his voice one more time before she gets rid of everything from him, and he answers the phone. So ensues this journey of her kind of like reliving things and rehashing things and trying to figure out, you know, if she wants to keep just this little piece of Sam that she can or move on. The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. The main story takes place on this cruise ship, high-end cruise, that Lo was invited to go on for work. She's a journalist. She swears on the first night she hears and sees someone being thrown overboard. So she does all that she can to find out who that was and what happens, and no one on board knows about this person being thrown overboard. So is she going crazy? Or did she really see that and something sketchy is happening on this ship? Then we have She's Up to No Good. This story follows our main female character who's down in the dumps. She's had some things happen to her. Her grandma is going on a trip and invites her to go along. As they're traveling up there, it recounts the past, her grandma's past love affairs, and then in the future we also get to see the main female character healing from what's happened to her and making a new match that kind of parallels her grandma's match in the past. Then we have Manhunt by Vanessa Vale. This is just a pretty short story about a woman and has this meet cute with this man in a coffee shop, and come to find out that man is the boss of the company she works at, coming to kind of figure out what's going on and what the issues are. The way that this starts out, the romance of things, is that she was sent this pretty provocative quiz from her best friend. She fills it out, and instead of sending it to her friend, she accidentally sends it to him, the boss, and that spirals a romance. Then we have Tokyo Ever After, which is a story about a teenage girl who finds out that she is a princess of Japan. So she meets her dad for the first time. He didn't know that she was alive. So she goes over there to try and meet him and try and see what this whole princess thing is about. She makes a connection with her bodyguard. Then we have An Unexpected Paradise. This is about two workplace rivals who end up getting sent to a conference together. Come to find out, the main female character's ex, emotionally abusive ex, is going to be at that conference, and so even though they're rivals, they set that aside, they wave the flags, and he pretends to be her boyfriend at the conference. Then we have Starfish, which is about a teenage girl who's an artist and is just not understood by her mother. Her mother is a narcissist. So when her best friend offers for her to stay at his place with his family over the summer, even though they hadn't spoken in years because he had moved away, she jumps on the chance. So she gets away from her family and kind of gets to learn more about herself and her art. Then we have Light from Uncommon Stars. How do I explain this book? We have a trans violinist who is not understood by their parents whatsoever. We have an infamous violinist who made a deal with the devil to become forever famous as long as they sacrifice 7 lives. The one who made the deal with the demon takes the trans violinist under her wing, takes her in, trains her, and is going to sacrifice her as her next victim. A lot more happens. There's also extraterrestrial characters who own a donut shop that are involved. Then we have Frost, which is the first book in the Frost and Nectar series. We have a fae woman who was raised with humans for an unknown reason. The fae king is hosting a televised event to find a queen, and somehow she becomes one of the contestants and goes over to their world, and then a lot of shit happens. Then we have Stuck With You by Ali Hazelwood. This is part of the Steminist novellas. I didn't realize I read that this year. We have a main female character and a main male character with history. She hates his guts now. He does not know why, because they had a magical night together and they become stuck in an elevator together. Then we have They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. This follows two characters who get a call from this organization that calls you on your death day. They call you the day that you're gonna die. You don't know when, you don't know how, you don't know why, but you're gonna die that day no matter what you do. So these two boys start separately, and then their paths kind of cross through an app where you can befriend someone who's gonna die on the same day as you. God, this sounds morbid. So it's just their journey of running around the city trying to fulfill some last wishes and random things that happen to them before they die. Then we have Artemis by Andy Weir. This follows our main character. She brings things on the black market, but the twist is that they live on the moon. So there's all these protocols. Anyway, something happens and she gets involved in like the biggest heist on the moon ever. Then we have Royally Crushed by Melanie Summers. This follows a princess who is not taken seriously. They just want to dress her up and have her drink tea and look pretty all day, and she's done with that. So when she gets the offer to be on a reality TV show, like a reality survival TV show, she takes the offer, runs with it, and she is paired with this survivalist co-host who does like survival documentaries, and they're like paired together. to spend like a week in Africa, like trekking through the forest. Then we have Devil's Lair by Anna Zaras. This is the first book in the Molotov obsession. This is a dark mafia romance. Our main female character is being attacked and hunted down by assassins, and so she's on the run and finds this job in the middle of nowhere, Idaho, with like a fortress and fences and security cameras, and she's like, I'll take that job. And it's to nanny this man's son. She works there. She's trying to hide that these men are trying to assassinate her. And then our main male character is very mysterious and has his own history that he's kind of trying to keep from her. Then we have Winter Turning by Tui T. Sutherland. This is the 7th book in the Wings of Fire series. We're following Winter, an ice dragon, who wants to leave the school that they're at and go back home. And when he does return home, things are not quite as he remembered. He's not treated very respectfully, and so he has some tough decisions to make. Then we have Bear in a Bakery, another free book on the Stuff Your Kindle Day, about a woman who has some weird things happening to her bakery. So her dad hires this man who is a bear shifter to come help with construction and renovation. She is his mate, but he only has like so many days to fulfill, you know, finding his mate, or he loses his bear shifting powers forever. Then we have My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. This is a story about a young woman who is really trying to make things happen, make a career happen for herself, and it's not working. She needs money, she needs a place to stay, and this listing comes up for a really nice apartment for $200 a month, but her roommate is kind of weird and old-timey and reminds her of a vampire. She agrees to be his roommate, and he asks her to help him learn how to be more modern. Then we have Twisted Games by Anna Huang. This is the 2nd book in the Twisted series, following Bridget, who is a princess, and Reese, who is her bodyguard. While her brother's supposed to take the throne, he abdicates. She's thrust into princesship and queendom, and this is all along the same time when her and Reese are starting to fall in love. So they're like fighting against that. They're trying to find a path together, and kind of all the hardships that come along with that. Then we have Whiskey and Wine. This is about an event planner who goes to this hotel and event center in Canada to help them host events for the holidays. The owner is a hockey player with a chip on his shoulder. They have a not-so-meet-cute, and a romance ensues. Then we have Accidentally Amy by Lynn Painter. This story follows our main character when she was waiting a really long time for her coffee. The lady who ordered the same exact drink as her, Amy, wasn't showing up, so she was going to take Amy's drink and then let Amy take her drink when she finally arrived. Crashes into a man, they have a meet cute. That man ends up being her new boss and finds out she's not really Amy. Then we have Well Met by Jen DeLuca. She's helping her niece go to Ren Fair, but an adult has to be present because she's underage. So she joins the Ren Fair crew and has a not so meet cute with another guy in town, and you got it, a romance ensues, but it's at like, you know, Renaissance Festival. Then we have The Dare by Elle Kennedy. This is the 4th and final book in the Briar U series, following Connor and, is it Taylor? Essentially, our main female character's sorority has a bully, dares her to go to this hockey player, Connor, really popular, known as like a sex god kind of guy, and proposition him. They go up, and she's like, I'm just pretending, let's just pretend, and they pretend, and then they develop a friendship and then later a romance. Then we have Daisy Jones and the Six. This is a story about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, about Daisy, who is a musician who kind of joined this group of other musicians and changed the dynamics. There's lots of tension, there's lots of difficulties of famedom, and it is told in like a verbal history. Then we have Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. This is a brother's best friend forbidden love romance about a girl who's actually a clown, but she wants to be taken seriously. She wants to date like an older, like well-known man. On the flip side, our main male character has just retired from professional baseball due to a severe injury, but he has a potential job offer to be an MC. It's a family-friendly company. He needs to look like he, you know, is settling down, so they decide to fake date each other. Then we have Racing the Sun by Karina Hall. This is about a woman who is living abroad, runs out of money, takes a nanny job for these two twins who just lost their parents. Well, their older brother, much older brother, is their new guardian and caretaker, and the sparks fly. Then we have When Breath Becomes Air. This is a kind of a memoir about a man who is a surgeon who's just kind of coming up at the end of his residency and then finds out he has cancer, and so it's his journey of going through that and the things he's learned in life and, you know, why he thinks he's on this path. Then we have The Skin of the Sea. This is the first book in the Mermaids of the Orisha series. It follows kind of a Little Mermaid twist or retelling. Our main female character is a siren who's meant to find worthy souls and pass them on to the Orisha, who then sends them to a better afterlife. But instead of taking a soul that had passed, she saves a man. And it totally sets off an imbalance of the world and the gods and the mythical creatures. So she has to go kind of right it and goes on this journey all over the sea. Then we have Love Boat Taipei, which is about a very reluctant teenage girl who is sent to Taiwan to go to this kind of school for the summer, but is also known to make a lot of couples happen. So it's her adventure, meeting people, finding her place, traveling around Taiwan. Then we have House of Hades by Rick Riordan. This follows the crew, Hazel, Annabeth, Percy, and a few others. And since it's the fourth book in the series, I don't want to explain too much, but it follows them on their journeys of helping the gods some more, because they help the gods a lot. Then we have Texas Rose Forever by Katie Grakowski. This is a cowboy romance about a woman who is a writer and kind of a historian. So she goes to this family to get their history, to write like a book of their family history. Meets the oldest son, cowboy, and they have a little dalliance. Then we have The Titan's Curse by Rick Riordan. This is the third book in the series. In the previous books, this girl named Talia keeps getting mentioned, and because of certain circumstances, Talia ends up showing up in this book. And of course they go on more adventures trying to help the gods. Then we have Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This follows our main female character, Lily, I believe, and her childhood crush, Michael, comes back into town and she really wants him to ask her to prom. So she goes through all of these steps with the help of her next door neighbor and kind of her like arch nemesis, Wes, to get Michael to notice her and ask her to prom. And we have The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. This story follows a woman who just found out about the infidelity of her husband on the cusp of like their 10-year anniversary. So she goes on their anniversary trip alone to Europe. While she's there, she discovers this like apothecary bottle and dives into the history of where it came from. And then we flip back into the past about the actual owner of this bottle, and their kind of journey parallels each other. Then we have Below Zero. It is the last book in the Steminist novellas by Ali Hazelwood. This one follows two main characters who, again, they have the whole like enemies to lovers in the workplace situation, but they end up working together on a project, maybe Alaska, Antarctica, and he ends up saving her life. Then we have Final Offer by Lauren Asher, the third and final book in the Dreamland Billionaire series. We follow Cal, who is a suffering alcoholic or a recovering alcoholic, and Alana, his past best friend and ex-girlfriend. Cal gets instructions from his grandfather in his will to mend their relationship or he cannot get his inheritance. Do I Know You is by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Broca. It's a second chance romance about two people who have been married for a while but just don't seem to know each other anymore. They don't seem to talk. They're stuck in a rut. So they go on a trip and pretend to not know each other. Next is Grim and Barrett by Juliet Cross. This is the 6th and final book in the Stay a Spell series. Clara is the youngest sister of the Savoy family and an Aura who helps with emotions and emotional regulation, and Henry is a Grim and kind of gets caught up in his father and their past, and there of course are some crazy situation going on in the town of New Orleans, and Henry gets caught up in that, and of course Clara gets caught up in it too because Henry's her man and she finally decides to make a move on him since he is not making a move on her. Then we have The Year of Less, which is a memoir about this woman who just decides to not spend any money unless absolutely necessary for a year. So, you know, she spends it on like food and groceries and, you know, if she has a hole in her shoe, but everything else she saves or uses it to travel. And just her experience with that. Next is The Blood of Olympus by Rick Riordan, the 5th and final book in the Heroes of Olympus series. It just wraps up all of their final adventures and helping the gods. Lots of stuff comes to a conclusion in this, the final battle and all of that. Next is Atalanta by Jennifer Saint, following Atalanta, who was raised in the wild by bears and kind of favored by Artemis, and Artemis asks her to be part of the Argonauts with Jason in the journey to find the Golden Fleece. Then we have Twisted Love by Anna Huang. Ava is a photography student in college. Her brother's leaving on a medical brigade and asks his best friend Alex to watch over Ava. So Alex takes it to heart and watches over Ava, and things get a little heated between them. Then we have Legend Born by Tracy Dion. We have Bree, who has started experiencing some weird things, but she goes to this early college program and finds out about this society of King Arthur and gets all wrapped up and involved in this, and it kind of unleashes this whole other world that she didn't even know about. Then we have Barbarian Alien by Ruby Dixon. This is the 2nd book in the Ice Planet Barbarian series and also a reread for me. It follows our main couple Liz and Rahash. Liz resonated to Rahash, but he knew that she would hate him because he's scarred and ugly. And he kind of takes her and escapes with her. I just realized it's kind of like a Beauty and the Beast situation. I like just realized that. But they're both super snarky and the banter is crazy and there's a lot of steam and a lot of action in the end too. I love them together. Then we have The Secret Garden. There were a few things in it that I didn't appreciate, but moving past that and looking at the overall message of the story, persevering through those dark times and finding friendship and finding the beauty in nature and discovering your purpose and just finding strength again, I just really liked that. Then we have Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. Ariadne gives Theseus the string to help destroy the Minotaur, and then he kind of abandons her. And so it's her story after that of her life, as well as Phaedra's, when she goes and ends up marrying Theseus herself. Then we have The Vine Witch, which is a historical fiction about a witch. Her powers are tied to a vineyard that she's supposed to protect, and the vineyard's not doing so well. So she has to figure out the mystery of who turned her into a toad and try and get her vineyard back and running and healthy again. Next is Autobiography by Christina Lauren. We have a teenage boy named Tanner who gets into this program for writing, but one of the mentors of the program is a boy that he realizes he's attracted to, but he's the son of a Mormon pastor or priest. Next is Practice Makes Perfect, which is the 2nd book in the When in Rome series by Sarah Adams. This follows the youngest sister Annie, who is tired of being seen as the little angel perfect child in the town even though she's almost 30. Just wants to be better at dating. She wants to be seen differently, and so she fake dates or gets kind of like dating lessons from Will, who is Amelia, her sister-in-law's bodyguard. Next is Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. This story follows a man who is recently deceased, but he's alive. They take him to this house where people who have trouble passing on kind of stay and figure things out before moving on through the whispering door. Then we have I Found You by Lisa Jewell. This is a dual timeline story about a man who is discovered near this woman's house with amnesia. And then we flash back to several years ago with a storyline about a girl, her older brother, and then another guy that kind of gets wrapped up with them who's like into the little sister. So we flip-flop between the timelines, and you're kind of trying to figure out who is the man with amnesia. Is he the brother, or is he the kind of crazy dude that's into the sister? Then we have The Honey Don't List by Christina Lauren. This is a cozy little book about this woman who is an assistant to this famous couple who originally took her in, and then they became really famous, and she's ready to move on, but she doesn't know how. So she's going to go on this final journey with them where they are marketing their new book together, and things just go shit. Next is The Love Wager by Lynn Painter. This is the second book in the Mr. Wrong Number series. It follows Jack as well as Hallie. The two have a very spicy, wild night together and then decide that they're gonna get on dating apps. Well, they accidentally find each other on the dating apps and decide to kind of cheer each other on and do a bet where they see who can find love first. Next is The Electric Kingdom by David Arnold. This is set in a world, a kind of post-apocalyptic world, where these flies eat basically anything living, breathing with flesh. Nico, she's 18, her dad's a scientist. He sends her on this journey to find out some sort of like anomaly or some sort of thing he thinks can help them. So she goes on this journey, meets up with some other kids, some other misfits, and they go on this journey together to find this thing. Then we have That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Human. This is the third book in the Mead Mishap series. Our main female character is captured by a dragon ages ago and is trapped, and then another dragon, his friend dragon, comes to visit him like a century later and finds her, and he's like, oh my gosh, she's my mate, I need her, but she like drugs him because she doesn't trust dragons. He was started away to his castle. It's kind of a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and things ensue from there. Then we have Electra by Jennifer Saint. This follows the story of Electra, who is a daughter of Agamemnon, and she just sees her father as the best thing ever. And it's just this journey of Electra growing up and various things that happen within the castle due to Electra and due to Electra's mom. Then we have All Boys Aren't Blue, which is a memoir about a young queer man's experience growing up as a black boy and as a black queer boy. Then we have Demon in the Wood, which is a graphic novel about the Darkling when he's young and kind of some of the events that occurred to him that show his history and maybe why he ended up becoming how he ended up becoming. Next is I Married a Birdman by Regine Abel. This is the third book in the Prime Mating Agency. This book follows a woman who is a healer in her community of people on this primitive planet, and they're being attacked by minotaurs, and so she kind of asks for the help of the bird people, and she ends up being a mate of one of the like higher up bird people. So ensues the journey of them getting to know each other and the bird people helping the humans. Next is The Elite by Kiera Cass. This is the second book in the Selection series, also a reread for me. It follows some struggles between America and kind of her roles as potential princess one day. Her and Mason have some difficulties with their relationship, and America has some tough choices to make. Next is Mark of Athena by Rick Riordan. This is the third book in the Heroes of Olympus series. Percy and Annabeth get to be reunited. The two crews kind of meet up together and they start their larger journey of, you know, answering this new prophecy. Next is Tales from the Cafe, the second book in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. It's just cute, sweet, wholesome stories about people who go to this cafe where you can go back in time if you sit at this specific seat and drink coffee at a certain temperature served by a specific server. We Are Okay by Nina LaCure follows a young girl, Marin, who has a secret and refuses to come home from her first year of college. So her best friend Mabel goes to her and her secrets kind of unfold. This is a story about friendships, secrets, and unconditional love. A Match Made at Christmas follows two best friends. Our main female character is honored at this one event where she gets to decorate this special Christmas tree in Nantucket, and her best friend, who's a travel videographer and writer, comes back home to see her. She's held a candle for him for forever. He's kind of held a candle for her too, but like pushed that away, and this experience is kind of showing the two what means the most to them. Barbarian Lover by Ruby Dixon is the third book in the Ice Planet Barbarian series. It follows Kira and Ihako. Ihako is an all-time book boyfriend of mine. Kira has a translator, hears that the aliens are coming back, and kind of goes on this journey to stop them. And Ihako, of course, comes along because Kira is a girl. Killers of a Certain Age follows some older ladies who used to be assassins. They end up becoming targets. So ensues their journey of figuring out why and kind of going on a final mission to save themselves. Next is Rabbit Hutch. This is a really strange story about a really strange town and all of these people in it, and their paths interconnect. Weird shit happens. It's so weird, but I really enjoyed it. Like, it gave me strange dreams, but like, man, it stuck with me. The Play by Elle Kennedy is the third book in the Briar You series. It follows Demi, who ends up becoming friends with Hunter, who has decided to take a year of abstinence so that he can be really good at hockey because he's the new hockey captain. But Demi kind of decides that she wants to be with Hunter, or tries to convince him otherwise. Sorry, I had to do a battery change, so if the angle is different. Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt is a story about a giant Pacific octopus who befriends the lady Tova who cleans the aquarium. He's very intelligent and observant and ends up having seen something having to do with the mysterious disappearance of her son years ago. The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna follows two sisters living in France during World War II and their journeys, their experiences, their decisions that they made and why they made them, and how their paths interconnect. A raw, sad story, but a good one. One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid is about a woman who experienced the loss of her husband on their wedding anniversary. He was her best friend and high school sweetheart. She's moved on in a path she never thought, but she's doing okay and is engaged, and then finds out that her husband was found and is alive. Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas follows Yadriel, who is a trans brujo who helps summon spirits of the dead and move them on to the next life. Yadriel's cousin Miguel goes missing, and so he tries to summon his spirit and ends up accidentally summoning Julian, the resident high school bad boy, instead. A Darker Shade of Magic is the first book in the Shades of Magic series. It follows Cal, who has this unique magic where he can jump between Londons. There's a red London, a white London, a gray London, and a black London that has been shut down. There's lots of mysterious things happening between the two, and he kind of gets caught up in some shenanigans. Just Down the Road is the fourth book in the Harmony series by Jodie Thomas. We follow a whole cast of characters. There's a doctor running away from her dad who's very controlling, a rancher who lost his wife and discovers that he has one living family member. We have a mortician who's just like the kindest soul you'll ever meet. We have a young teenage girl who just lost her adoptive uncle, and a young teenage boy who's working to become a musician. It's a story about community, there's a little bit of mystery, and love. Breathing Room by Susan Elizabeth Phillips is about this lady who lost her marriage, she lost her fortune, and so everything she's worked up her career has crumbled down. She escapes to Spain to rebuild her life and recover herself and her career, and meets this one actor who kind of owns the greater property she's rented the house on, and sparks fly. He's like poking at her, he has like dark humor, he's like, you know, trying to get a rise at her, and she's trying to keep herself. Very proper. Kiss the Sky by Becca and Krista Ritchie is the first book in the Calloway Sisters series. It follows Connor and Rose, and they are doing kind of a reality TV show to help get their reputation back after an incident from the Addicted series, which I haven't read. There's lots of drama. The sisters and their partners, and a really nasty human being who is the director of their show. Lots of drama. Son of Neptune by Rick Riordan is the second book in the Heroes of Olympus series. We get to see what happened to Percy in this book. He is kind of traded between camps of the gods. So he kind of goes on a quest in this book to kind of prove himself, and it's a wild journey. Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo is the second book in the Six of Crows series. We get to see the crew and follow them after the cliffhanger of the previous book. Lots of things are wrapped up, lots of action, lots of heist magic. It was a wild ride, but a really good conclusion to the series. The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker is not the easiest book to read, but it has just stuck with me. It follows the Trojan War, but from the perspective of Briseis, who is a war prize to Achilles. Every Summer After is a dual timeline story about Percy, or Persephone, and her relationship with Sam. They used to be best friends, and then were in a relationship in the past, and then we find out in the present that they haven't talked for 12 years. So we go kind of back and forth of the past, how they became friends and started dating, and why they no longer speak to each other. Then we have Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. I have it up in the house. Silly me, even though I have the physical copy. This is a really sweet story about our main female character who has a limb difference. She's very independent because of this difference and the challenges that have arisen because of it, and she has a one-night stand and an accidental oopsie. And our main male character, Beau, decides that he wants to play a part in this event after the one-night stand, and so she's kind of like grappling with, you know, how much does she let him in, how much does she let him help, and just the relationship that ensues from it. Next is The Sacrifice by Rin Chupeco. This is a young adult horror novel following Filipino lore. This reality TV show wants to film on this island known to have a sleeping god that will awaken when 8 specific sacrifices have been made. Escaping Peril by Tui T. Sutherland is the 8th book in the Wings of Fire series. We follow Peril, who has scales that are so hot, she pretty much burns anything that can burn. So a lot of people don't trust her, and she goes on this journey to kind of capture this queen that wreaked a lot of havoc on this world, and she's trying to like prove herself and makes new friends along the way. A Proposal They Can't Refuse by Natalie Kanya is a friends to lovers, forced proximity, contractual fake engagement story about 2 families who own different restaurants. One is a restaurant, one is a whiskey distillery. The grandson and the granddaughter are kind of blackmailed into having a fake engagement, and then what ensues from that. XOXO by Axio follows the story of Jenny, who is a musician. She ends up moving to Seoul with her mom so they can take care of her ailing grandmother. Before moving to Seoul, she has this whirlwind night with a random boy she met. She never hears from him again, but ends up running into him at her new music academy in Seoul. Running with Sherman by Christopher McDougall is a non-fiction memoir about a man who adopts an abused and neglected donkey and gives it purpose again and heals it by entering a running competition specifically for humans and donkeys. Like, you run next to the donkey, not on the donkey. It's a story about community, about goals and perseverance. It's a wholesome story. Our Wives Under the Sea is kind of a horror novel. It follows these 2 women. One is a marine biologist who gets sent in a submarine to do research, which is only supposed to be like a week-long trip, and then she's gone for months and comes back completely different. So her wife is trying to take care of her, trying to be the best, but she doesn't know what happened. So it flips between the timelines of the now where her wife is trying to take care of her and the past when she was like in the submarine. Really weird, really different, but very captivating. Then we have just the whole Lore Olympus series by Rachel Smythe. I read this when it was on Webtoons. It's a Persephone Hades story, like a modern fantasy Persephone and Hades story. I always say Mercedes. It's very amusing. It tackles some tough topics. Next is The House Switch by Delamock. We follow a witch whose main element has kind of mutated into being the element of the house. So he makes the house safe and cozy for everyone. And so our main witch Finn becomes the head chef at a castle of a kingdom, and lots of random stuff, lots of new people, lots of new places, and food ensue. Why Has Nobody Told Me This is a non-fiction book, kind of a self-help book about, it just tells you and gives you advice on how to react when you're, you know, maybe you're feeling depressed, or maybe you're experiencing grief, or maybe you're having a lot of anxiety, and it just kind of like gives you the facts about what that's like and some gentle ways that you can handle that if you for some reason can't go to therapy or don't want to go to therapy. On that same vein, we have How to Keep Housewife Drowning. It is a short story about a woman's experience and advice about handling self-care and cleaning when you do not have it in you to do that. The Sea of Monsters is the second book in the Percy Jackson series by Rick Riordan. It's a reread for me. I love this world. I love Tyson! Tyson is a new character introduced. And I love the ocean, so I loved, you know, how much of the ocean was present in this book and just the adventures that they go on. The Last Word by Taylor Adams is one of my most recent reads. I think it's like a thriller? I don't really know. This woman writes a scathing book review, a 1-star book review, this indie author's book. And he's like, how dare you, I worked so hard on this, take it down. She's like, no. And he's like, you better take it down or else. And she's like, no. And then weird shit starts happening. Like, things are getting broken, birds are flying into windows and dying, her dog's eating weird stuff that's not normally found where she is. And it was just twisty and fast-paced and just crazy. Two Wrongs Make a Right by Chloe Lisset is a story of Bea and Jamie. Their friends or like relatives are trying to force them together. They don't like that, so they decide to fake date, make their friends and family fall in love with them, and then break their hearts whenever they fake break up. Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros is a fantasy story about dragons and dragon riders. We have our main female character, Violet, who wanted to be a scribe but is forced to become a dragon rider, and just her journey with that. Yeah, there's a lot more to the story, but that's the short. Then we have Mythos by Stephen Fry. It's just a comical, humorous retelling of the basic Greek mythology stories. It was just a really fun listen. It was just delightful. Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell and Faith Erin Hicks is the story of two seniors who have worked at this pumpkin patch their entire high school career, so it's their last day at the pumpkin patch. So they go around doing things that they had never done before. It's a really fun little rompy adventure. The Bodyguard by Catherine Center is a story of a personal safety agent. I always forget what they're called. Executive protection agent. She got hired to protect superstar actor Jack, but he doesn't want his family to know that she is his protective agent because his mom is sick. So she pretends to be his girlfriend while being his protective agent. It's really cute. Twisted Hate by Anna Huang is the third book in the Twisted series. It follows Jules and Josh, who are known to hate each other. We finally figure out why. And it's a love-hate relationship for sure. Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert is a story of Celine, who is a TikToker and a high achiever. She's trying to get a scholarship through this survival course. Whoever wins gets a full ride scholarship. Her ex-best friend Bradley kind of ends up being involved in this too, and so it's the story of them like becoming friends again and the survival academy course and lots of adventures. and I just love the representation. It was really fun and sassy. When in Rome by Sarah Adams follows Amelia, who is a pop star. She just needs a break, and on her way to take a break, her car breaks down in front of Noah's front yard. He agrees to let her stay there for a little while in this small little town while her car gets fixed. Forced proximity, grumpy sunshine, super cute. Cozy vibes. Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry is a fantasy story about an orc mercenary who wants a break and decides to create a coffee shop in a town where no one knows about coffee, and just her journey doing that. The Battle of the Labyrinth is the 4th book in the Percy Jackson series by Rick Riordan. I love this book a lot. I love the labyrinth and all that they go through in it, and the journey that this story in the series went on through this book. It was so good. The Last Battle is the 5th book in the Percy Jackson series by Rick Riordan. I just love the conclusion of this series. It was great. The Selection by Kiera Cass is the 1st book in the Selection series. I love this world. Our main character, America, lives in a world with Cass. She's a number 5, which is pretty in the middle or more towards the bottom. The prince is coming of age and needs to find a commoner wife, and she gets selected to be part of the girls who are like in a televised kind of bachelorette setting to marry the prince. The Lost Hero is the 1st book in the Heroes of Olympus series by Rick Riordan. We get to meet some new characters. We get to meet Piper, Jason, and Leo. They befriend this animatronic dragon. They go on adventures, and it's just a new start to a new series, and I really enjoyed it. I Married a Naga by Regine Abel is the 2nd book in the Prime Mating Agency. I just loved these main characters and this couple. I loved this world. It was so fun. You know when you love 2 characters like separately and then you love them together? It just worked. It was great. Then we have Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. It's the 1st book in the series, and it was a reread for me. These women get abducted by bad aliens, and their ship malfunctions, and they get dropped on this icy planet. Well, Georgie's like, we need help, so she goes out to try and find help and meets these blue aliens, and they like resonate, and they become like mates. And so it's like this journey of them finding help and learning to live on this planet. The Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel is a story about time. People live in the future on the moon, and one of the scientists finds an anomaly in time. They train this man. He goes back and interviews all these people who have interacted with this anomaly and what ensues because of it. Maggie Moves On by Lucy Score is a story about Maggie, who is a YouTuber and a house flipper. She takes on this giant historical home in Idaho and hires Silas as her outdoor landscaper. Silas instantly falls in love with Maggie, and it's just a story about Maggie discovering what she wants to do with her future, making new friends, working on this really tough project, and goofy Silas and his dog Kevin. The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan is the 1st book in the Percy Jackson series. It's a reread for me. It was so humorous and delightful. It got me out of a reading slump. This follows Percy, an 11-year-old boy who discovers he is a demigod, half human, half god, and he goes on this journey, this quest to help the gods. A Man Called Ove by Frederick Bachman is the story of this old crotchety man who is tired of life, and content warnings for sure, but he does not want to continue living, but he gets a pesky, interfering neighbor who always manages to interrupt him and always needs his help for something. And so it's just this journey of like Ove helping people and always being interrupted, and you know what ensues because of that. A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana is exactly what it sounds like. These witches are secretive because of what happened to them in their past. They have a curse where they're orphans, and this one witch gets asked to help these 3 orphans who are living in this one house raised by a collection of eclectic people, and she agrees to. So it's this journey. There's also a romance with the librarian of the estate. Then we have Dragon Heist by Alexander C. Kane. This is so freaking hilarious about this dragon who wants to basically steal from other dragons and collects a group of people with various talents to help him steal from this tribe of dragons. It's very humorous. The audiobook is excellent. Okay, this video took longer to film than I thought, so I'm gonna have to take a break and go to work and come back and film the rest of it. So I'm probably gonna look much more tired when I come back for the rest of this. I'll see you in a bit. Okay, my friends, it's many hours later, but we are back. I do apologize for that. I thought I had planned it well enough that I could film it all in one go, but that's okay. At least it's still the same day. Let's finish with some of my favorite books that I've read this year. Empire of Storms is the 5th or 6th book in the Throne of Glass series, depending on how you count the novella. Some people count the novella as 0, but it's still a full book. So anyway, I get so confused by that. It has been one of my favorite books of the series since it released. I remember waiting for that release. Aelin is not taken seriously, and so she goes on a journey collecting people and committing to tasks that will help her gather an army. It's all over the country to do it. So that also leaves us with Tower of Dawn, 6th or 7th book in the Throne of Glass series. It follows Chaol's story on another continent. He is set out to be healed from an injury and kind of learn more about the country and gain ties with them. It's like every time I read that story, I love it more and more. Then of course we have The Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J Maas, the final book in the Throne of Glass series, the epic conclusion to the series. It just does such an excellent job of tying up all the threads, all the last minute questions, the epic battle. All of our characters go through some pretty tough things, but I was so satisfied with the ending of this book. And I feel like after 7 or 8 books in a series, that's really tough to do, but Sarah J Maas nailed it. The Measure by Nikki Erlich is a kind of science fiction or magical realism book where people get boxes on their 22nd birthday with strings. If you have a short string, you're gonna live for a short amount of time. If you have a long string, you'll live for a long time. When these boxes with these strings come into play, it changes the whole fabric of society and culture in this world. The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren was a reread for me. I annotated it. I loved it. The Soulmate Equation happens in a world where this application has just been created, where with your DNA you can be matched by a percentage with a potential soulmate. Kind of like 23andMe with your family, but with like soulmates. Jessica has the opportunity to send in her DNA and ends up getting a 98% match with the creator of this application. So ensues a contractual relationship so that she can protect her daughter and her heart, and how that ended up working out. Notes on an Execution by Dania Kukovka is a story from multiple point of views, but ultimately we follow this one man who committed a heinous crime against 3 women and his day leading up to death row. Then we flip back into past of these women who have had ties to his life, who have all interconnected with his life and their past experiences with him. Twisted Lies is the 4th and final book in the Twisted series by Anna Huang. It follows Christian and Stella. Stella is an up-and-coming influencer. She's a fashion blogger, and Christian owns the high-rise that she lives in. She runs into him a lot, and the opportunity for them to have a fake contractual relationship comes up to kind of boost Stella's influence and to make Christian seem more friendly so that he can snag some more clients for his, he has a service for security guards. Stella is also struggling with a stalker, and Christian kind of takes it upon himself to intercept with that situation. The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho is a short story about a man who had a dream that he felt the need to follow to his personal treasure. Along the way, things don't go as planned, but our main character learns a lot. He meets a lot of people. He goes on paths he never thought and learns so much along the way. Every time I read this and think about this, my meaning of the story changes, and I just love that it's a book that has that chameleon ability to be what you want and what you need as you need it. Last but certainly not least, All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir is a story about grief and despair, but it's also about love and hope and rage and community and unconditional love and humor. How do I encapsulate this in 2 sentences? Noor and Salahuddin are going through their own tough circumstances and they come together to get through them, but life throws them for a loop. But it's how they react to that that is just incredible to me. I am not doing this justice. Stay tuned for my next video where I talk about my all-time favorite top 23 reads of the year, and I will go more into depth about this book. Thank you all so much for joining me for this video. I know that the lighting has been weird. I know that I did not always stick to a few sentences per book. If you made it this far, leave a little like shining star emoji. You're the real MVP. Can you tell the energy difference from earlier in the video to now? Thank you all so much for joining me. Y'all are the best. I hope you're having a wonderful December and that you're enjoying BOOKMAS. I hope that you can check out some of these books that I've read this year, especially the ones that I absolutely love. I will see you in my next video, everyone.